let's turn our attention to the central processing unit, focusing on the socket. Bit of history here. The old standard that antiquated and gone the way of the doo-doo is the socket called Zero Insertion Force, or ZIF. And what this is a collection of pinholes on the socket that map the copper pins on the CPU die. This is an old 486 class processor. At left is the top of the die and the bottom are the pins, and I hope you can see the potential problem. In fact, it's looked like several of the pins in the picture are bent. Unless you are extremely careful on how you are mounting the CPU in the ZIF socket, you could wind up with a bent pin, and then you have got a paperweight. Admittedly, it's a light and smart paperweight, but it's a paperweight nonetheless. The current standard is the LAND or LGA, which is just the opposite of ZIF. With LGAs, the socket has the pins and the processor has the contact. This is the underside of a current generation processor, and around all the copper that you see around the outer part are the contacts. Inside the middle, those are cache memory modules that we will discuss in the next module. They are very teeny and very fast, but you see instantly that this should make it easier to install the CPU, and it does. But what you need to be careful of with LGA is that you need to press to make sure that the contacts are all making contact with the pins in the CPU socket. Specifically, you will find that the LGA sockets have a retention clip and cover. So as you can see here, there's the pins. You lay the processor down. Of course, you're going to be grounded with an electrostatic wrist strap. Of course, you're not going to be working on carpet, for heaven's sake. It looks like in this picture underneath the anti-static pad is carpet. That's absolutely the wrong thing to do when you're doing an installation here. But anyway, you set the CPU onto those pins. And again, there's a cayon or notches around the border of the socket to make sure you're putting the CPU in correctly. And then you bring down the top, and there's actually some force. There's a cam level that pushes the CPU firmly down on the pins. From there, in the terms of cooling the CPU, you will apply what's called thermal paste, which is a glue, but is a special kind of glue that has properties such as it's good at allowing heat to come through it and forming a really solid conduction seal between the top of your CPU, the die itself, and your heat sink. And oftentimes you will have a fan on the top of the heat sink, either blowing down through the fins of the heat sink or up into the body of the case. That cooling discussion can be a big ticket to itself. So again, just stick with what I am teaching you right now and you will be fine. See you in the next video.